First, the Russian oil flow will continue that countries turn inward when their economies collapse. That means that there would be no impact because Russia wouldn't interact with the global economy once their economy has fallen, and we're not going for it in the first place. Next one, the hydro flow will continue the perm on the top. It's just a test competition. It's not an advocacy. We're not going for it. But I'll answer the condo type here. First is the time skew. First, that's inevitable. And second is that it increases education because strategic cross applications are forwards. In the 2AC. And next to the ground. First, they can still impact turn. They can still impact turn both advocacies. That means they can still get offense against both. And B is that increases clash because the affirmative has to defend against the status quo and any other option. And the third is reciprocity. First, the affirmative can take advantages and read add-ons. So it's pretty equal. And B is their reciprocity kills debate. If we see our plan is bad, force us to stick with it. Kills education in the round. And fourth is that it's not a vote. Our interpretation is one conditional option and a status quo. And that's key to education. It diversifies the topic. Otherwise, we're stuck with only a status quo. Also, that we read one conditional option. It's not a vote. Or if anything, reject the argument. Not the team. Go into politics. First, the dissent will outweigh and turn the case at the top. First, on the time frame, extend across the impact card from the 1AC that Romney said that the first thing he's going to do in offense, he stated one of the first things he's going to do once he gets to office is strike Iran's nuclear facilities, and that's immediately going to lead to escalation, especially when Iran has things like hardened bunkers. So it's not even going to destroy their nuclear facilities in the first place. That'll escalate into regional and then global nuclear war, which is going to cause extinction in the first place also. And then I will in the biggest magnitude that we're going to be the only ones in round winning a truly global magnitude, especially because there's so many countries involved with the Middle East, so in places like Russia, China, and the U.S. all have so much at stake that's going to draw everyone in. And then on the probability, we'll win the time frame outweighs the probability in the first place because we need to if there's a chance that extinction can happen in the next few months, we need to do everything to stop it in the first place. Even if they win the probability from the warming flow, you should still prioritize it because we still have a couple years because we still have about 20 years to stall for warming after that first place, and then the dissent will turn the warming flow in the first place. If Romney's win, he's empirically stated that he'd immediately remove things like the PTC and let it expire. Also, you'd increase things like domestic use of coal, which would immediately cause a massive spike in CO2, which would only further increase warming. And he'll that also turn the diesel advantage. The 1AC evidence, their 1AC evidence says specifically that non-renewable forms of energy, especially like coal, even more so than nuclear power, you use water, so that'll turn the diesel advantage because Romney's just going to use that even more so. And then going to the politics flow itself. First, uniqueness debate. First, now is key slightly. Now there's no room for error. That's Joseph in 917. Obama is small but clearly over Romney. Obama is instead of Romney by narrowing margin is slightly larger lead in most swing states, but Romney has almost no room for error. The electoral college man says vote favorably for the president. Republicans are over there for the big spending advantage will help Romney climb his way back and lead to Democrats have to have the edge on the ground game. And highly accurate models suggest that Donovan, September 20, the UB political scientist and internationally recognized for the highly accurate election prediction models say President Obama is likely to receive 51.3% of the vote. There's a 67% chance that President Obama will be over 50% of the forecast. It is a close race until the Obama prediction is so defined that a Romney win is impossible, but Obama win is more likely. And Ohio and Florida are key. That's silver in 2012. The big two Ohio, 32% chance of determining the electoral college winner, and Florida 20% the numbers have slightly favored the president. The reason behind Obama's strong polling performance, a different each state of the auto issues recovery has helped drop Ohio's unemployment rate. Florida's economic recovery has not been as robust, and Obama may be buoyed by long-term economic factors. And 2AC number 2, they say nuclear reactors are probably, but opposition to nuclear assistance taxpayers don't want to be responsible accidents. CSM 2011, most Americans say the fair can win nuclear industry is worth 73% of Americans say they do not think taxpayers should take the risk of construction loans for new nuclear reactors, and Americans would not hold the companies liable for damage resulting from nuclear meltdown or other accident. 51% say the whole United States extended the operational lifespan of its nuclear territory. Extend across it, they can see that will concede their number 3 card that says that public popularity is key to the elections, and that means that if Obama wins the public vote, that he'll win the elections in the first place. So on the link debate, their evidence doesn't take into account things like Fukushima. It just says that people like new forms of renewable energies like nuclear power. But the fact is that it doesn't take into account accidents like Fukushima. Also, the money that we would have to spend to fix to create things like infrastructure in the first place. And then they make this independent support arguments to group those their number 5. They group their 4 and 5 arguments. Their cards say that independent support is key to winning things like swing states. But if Obama's winning those anyway, that means that he'll be able to win those, especially because the Ohio and Florida card that I read cross by that down there, and then they make this no worse than status quo argument. But this isn't specific to the Middle East scenario, which is their card just says that wars wouldn't happen, but it doesn't take into account things like worsening Middle Eastern relations, especially when Iran is testing the waters against the entire world, especially even after things like sanctions didn't work. Also down the bottom, they say conflict won't escalate unless resources, but the card only says only if the resources are scarce, and also it's not in the account of the Iran scenario. So if anything crossed by that, and you should prefer the specificity proclivity of the scenario in the first, but then go on to the warming flow first extend across the 1AC number one. Tickle says that we have to build 25 times the reactors, as you saw for the mission. That'll kill any chance of solvency, because by the time we'd be able to do that, it would take us 38 years. That's past the tipping point that they cited as 2030. So that means that there's no solvency of the warming flow in the first place. And then extend across the 1AC number two. The number two that nuclear reactors increase warming because the infrastructure that it takes to maintain them. Things like clearing up the waste, moving the waste after they produce it, and mining for the reactors. They're mining for the materials that are needed in the reaction in the first place creates much more massive CO2s that they won't be able to stop warming in the first place. Then extend across the bottom of the 1AC number 4 that says that it so says specifically that the medieval warming period disproves that a warming right now that we'd be able to solve this. We'd be able to adapt and live through this in the first place because people, especially with modern technology. And then on the back, extend across the 1AC number 6 that SMRs aren't cheap enough to switch to the conversion. This will take out any of their market solvency arguments because no one would transition over in the first place. And then go into salination and first extend across that. It's the 1AC number and number 2 that says that water scarcity doesn't lead to conflicts. Yeah, the water scarcity doesn't lead to conflicts. It's empirically proven with throughout places like the Middle East and Southeast Asia where they've been at a lack of resources for some time now. That it's never actually caused them to lead to war. If anything, that increases cooperation because the countries have an incentive to cooperate with each other, so they would both be able to get water, not fight with each other.